We have to talk about this report by Diana Rossini and Michael Silver, which I think it was on last week, like on Friday, maybe, or maybe even whatever the 21st was.
Mhm.
This, not that I would say that we have been kind of on top of this one in a way, in that, lots of 49er fans were like, Ayuk is coming back. Ayuk is coming back. And we were like, we hope Ayuk is coming back. Like, this is
Mm.
not, in the perfect world. Yeah, Ayuk comes back, but they're depending on how you wanted to look at this season. There's also a way that he wasn't going to come back. Now, I will say I didn't expect it to be because of the prior frustrations that the 49ers and Ayuk have had with each other. But the report came out and it said it now appears that Ayuk and the 49ers are headed for a stunning divorce. There hasn't been a lot of information about which meetings he didn't attend and what participation he wasn't involved in and team activities, X, Y, and Z. But it sounds like when the Niners re upped him last year, we all remember that hold in and all the craziness going on. It sounds like there were things written in that contract, and maybe this is the evil genius of Parag Marathe that it just didn't happen, which allowed the 49ers to void his guarantees for this upcoming season. And on the flip side, maybe this is Ayuk like really getting what he wants, but he did not fight this with the Players Association. So it looks like we're headed for a divorce this offseason where he's just going to be able to go wherever he wants to go. The Niners will save some money, but they will have a pretty bad dead cap hit, I think.
Mhm.
And we'll, we'll have the Brandon Aiyuk whole thing behind us, and we'll have to go find a new number one wide receiver next year.
Yeah, and for those who are new here, just so you know, whenever you see a Michael Silver byline, that's coming directly from the desk of Jed York. Just know that. So he is the mouthpiece of the San Francisco 49ers um front office management. So this and you can tell just by the reporting that that's what this is, because it was what was bizarre, even more what made an even more a bizarre story even more bizarre is when the head coach then comes out and refutes the claims that he missed meetings, and basically says that guys on IR, they're on a different deal. So there is no real, which is stunning to say. Well, but it's not if you've been here. There's clearly a divide between the business side and the football side in this
which is
organization.
which is the history of like the last 15 years of this team, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Once Harbaugh came on, there has been this struggle with personnel and with the way that the cap works and what the Niners are willing to do monetarily. And that's what I was saying about the evil genius of Parag, because if they set this contract up knowing historically maybe what Ayuk was not interested in doing, then maybe it was set up to work this way. But one of those like, Ayuk, you better not cross this line or else, and him just not blinking and being like, I'm good. If you guys want to avoid this, I'm good. Like that whole staring contest thing. And we've talked about Parag, and we're very pro player on this show. Not that, I don't understand why things like this happen, and am only blaming ownership. Like Ayuk, his stand-in had a lot of theatrics that didn't necessarily make the 49ers coaching staff, the guys who were sticking up for him, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, it didn't make them necessarily happy to see the hijinks that Ayuk was doing last year. But I'm sure they understood why he was doing it, and then for it to happen this way, it just all feels like if it was gonna eventually happen this way, ship this brother off to Pittsburgh like you were going to do so last year before the season started. Like, why do we waste a whole 2 years just to see who's going to blink first? And then it turns out nobody blinks and we move on and we lose 2 years of, this nonsensical story. That's my frustration. Like, I don't
Yeah,
really care.
mhm.
Go ahead.
That is the frustration in that we his agent has played this masterfully. For those who don't remember, let's recap. He went from being under contract to having several trade offers and contracts. So basically he had a sort of quasi free agency. And then what ends up happening is the Niners aren't jazzed about the compensation that they would get from either Pittsburgh or the Pats. And then there was some things with the Pats. I guess he wasn't so sold on their whole quarterback situation. So he
Well,
probably wouldn't get there anyway.
imagine if he could go back in history and
Yeah,
get
he didn't
himself to the
realize that
Pats
they were going.
last year.
He didn't realize they were going to draft Drake May in the next year. So yeah, that'll be an interesting player if he hits free agency. But the thought, was that they weren't jazzed about the compensation that they were going to get, so they end up signing the deal anyway. And then now it looks like they are going to get nothing for him. I see all the Jed pundits trying to say that they realize all this cap space. Well, I guess, but that's just for the only thing that they're going to get really is they don't end up paying the guarantee for next year. He's already gotten $50 million basically to rehab. And then, I was listening to David Sampson yesterday, and he was talking about the only thing that they could be talking about in terms of meetings and stuff is they might have put language in the contract having to do with his rehab. But the thing about that is if he wanted to fight that grievance, that's already been adjudicated. The team really does not have any say in how you rehab. Like, for example, the whole Christian Wilkins thing with the Raiders. That all boiled down to they wanted him to have surgery and he didn't want to have surgery. So but the team doesn't control that. They can't they don't have any say over your medical care. They can make recommendations, but ultimately, as long as you have a doctor and have a care plan, the team they can be pissed off about it, but they can't tell you how to rehab your injury. So if that is the crux of their argument, that's a grievance that he would win. But what it seems like to me, like you said earlier, he's willing to pay 20 or forego $26 million in order to become an unrestricted free agent, which, you know, kind of makes sense. I'm sure a lot of players in that circumstance, if they could pay to get to unrestricted free agency, they would do just that because I have number one, although he has not been cleared, I have no reason to believe that he's not healthy. And you listen to Kyle Shanahan, he seems to believe that he could still play this season, which doesn't make any sense to me if he doesn't have any guaranteed money left on this deal. Why on earth he would ever step foot on the field um I just don't see that happening. But stranger, this whole thing is so bizarre that at this point nothing would surprise me anymore.
Yeah, and you see how the team, everyone's looking for wide receivers. So, like you said, to be able to just be free to sign and get a maybe even a better deal than the one that the Niners
Mhm.
signed him to, uh, is going to be in his interest, in his best interest, maybe. But here's why I don't really necessarily uh, care too much when the players kind of rebel, or maybe they find some disfavor with the system, is because of scenarios just like this. Like, I'm not saying Parag Marate specifically set up this deal so that they could void next year. I don't think that they did it with that in mind, but it's pretty clear that they had some idea that there's going to be an out at some point if we wanted to get out, and if there was more disagreements, we'll be able to get out of this. And it's just the way that the NFL salary cap works, the way that you can, create all of this bonus money that people look at and go, "Oh, look, 120 million." And then when you break down what the contract actually is, how many escalators and bonuses you have to actually hit to get close to that number. Like the Colin Kaepernick contract was like the number one contract where you look at it and you go, okay, this is a fake contract, actually. Like, there's no way he gets to any of this stuff. And it's just for the headlines. So, I know a lot of people are probably mad at BA. A lot of people should rightfully so be mad at the way the 49ers handled this. Both are at fault, of course. But
Oh, it's
I'm not
messy.
here.
It's messy on both sides. It really
Yeah,
is, and
I'm not gonna say BA is a bad person. It's his fault or what. Like, there's so much drama involved in scenarios like this that it's it's both sides acting kind of like children and not coming to solutions on stuff. And when that happens, the 49ers historically have shown the ownership side of this does not handle that well. They
mm-mm,
will show their ass as more than the players will. And we've seen it with Jed York and Trent Baalke and Jim Harbaugh. Like, that's what this kind of stuff reminds me of, is just going all the way back to those years. And it's like, yeah,
mhm.
we have all of that evidence that this is not just on a player or on a coach. It is on the entire organization.
And most times, and that's why I have applauded this situation, honestly, is because most times in situations like this, and for years and years historically, it's the players that get screwed in these situations. So the fact that he was able to nick them for $50 million is, Jed's not going to miss it. And, they get this cap space. If that's how they want to spin it as a win for them, that's great, and willfully, and the argument has been that I've been having on the internet is that he'll be lucky if he makes $10 million next year. I'm like, man, look, what you're saying, and I can see that, he's coming off a major injury, but what you are postulating is that there are 31 completely rational actors out there running football teams. And I can tell you right now that where I'm at right now in Las Vegas, Mark Davis will give him a nine-figure contract tomorrow if he could. So again, there are places in this league. Tennessee is another place that if they can get their hands on a number one wide receiver and not have to pay anything for it and use their draft capital other places, again, I get that, the fans like to side with the owners in these things, which is bizarre to me, and really
Yeah.
want him to lose in this situation. History just tells me that that's not the case, because what they are not is going to be in lockstep with Jed York and trying to ensure that Brandon Aiyuk is the loser in this deal. If they believe that they can improve their situation by giving him this money, they all are going to act in their best interest every time. So the thought that, and and the other thing is that his agent doesn't know exactly, would let me know that he's healthy, is that they did not, if he's not healthy, then you fight like hell to get that
Mhm.
$27 million, because that might be the last money you're able to get. But the fact that they aren't even going to file a grievance on this lets me know. And also, agents know the market, and it's not like I. This guy seems too sharp to like be going out here in the market blind and not knowing that there are other teams out here that would be interested in a 27-year-old wide receiver in this market. So we already know they've had conversations with Pittsburgh. They've already had conversations with the Patriots. Maybe not this year, but I'm sure his agent has a good sense of where the teams are that need wide receivers and knows that he's going out into the market. He would be the top free agent. Pickens is not leaving Dallas. They're going to franchise him for sure. So Brandon Aiyuk would all of a sudden be the top wide receiver free agent on the market. And that's got to be pretty lucrative, I would imagine.